Chapter 1691. Xi Mengshan merely nodded in response, not paying much attention to Tang Wuling. After that, she was taken back to the Shrek Academy camp by Arahang, and only then did the battle gods return to their senses. The battle gods were all very refined and cultured individuals, but they were still struck by the urge to swear out loud in the wake of this preposterous situation. Not only were they winning the match, they had even won a battle god. This was ridiculous. Vice Hall Master. Aoru turned to Guan Yue with a beseeching look, but Guan Yue's hands were completely tied as well. That had to be one of the strangest sequences of events he had ever witnessed. That was most definitely the shortest proposal in history to land anyone titled Douluo wife, and only Arahang could be capable of something like this. Upon his return to the Shrek Academy camp, Sima Jinkai gave him a massive thumbs up. You're the man. I'm in full admiration right now. A smug look appeared on Arahang's face as he turned to Xi Mengshan. Mengshan, this is my good friend, Sima Jinkai. You can just call him Little C. Sima Jinkai's expression immediately darkened upon hearing this. Arahang, don't take advantage of the situation. If you don't like it, then come fight me. Arahang countered with a menacing glare. Sima Jinkai was fuming with rage, but there was nothing that he could do. Arahang had already attained the invincible Vajra body, so battling him was out of the equation. Even the dragon-slaying saber wouldn't be able to break through his defenses unless Tang Wuling was wielding it himself. To put it in simpler terms, it was virtually impossible to harm Arahang without a transcendent divine weapon. Xi Mengshan took a glance at Sima Jinkai, but didn't say anything, and merely stood on the spot, allowing Arahang to hold her hand. In reality, it was just as Arahang had speculated. Due to her physique and her lofty cultivation rank, Xi Mengshan had never met a man who had captured her heart during the past 41 years of her life, and no man had ever confessed to her. As such, Arahang's direct confession had completely blindsided her. This was the first time that she had been confessed to, and there were so many onlookers, so she completely panicked and put on a cold facade while the overwhelmingly masculine Arahang stood before her with his belly upper body completely bared. Upon reaching a certain age, all women would begin to envision what their ideal better half would be like, and Xi Mengshan was no exception to this. In her imagination, her spouse had to be very strong, a man who could carry the weight on his shoulders, and he had to be more powerful than her. This was one of the main reasons that she was unable to find a partner. However, Arahang completely fulfilled the image of the ideal man in her heart. So as he knelt down on one knee and proposed to her, her heart finally melted. She was already 41 years of age. If she were to miss out on this opportunity, perhaps she would never be able to find another man suitable for herself. As such, she had been filled with excitement as she accepted his proposal, and she didn't regret her decision. As her hand was being held by Arahang's large and strong hand, she was filled with an unprecedented sense of warmth and security. Her heart had been completely set aflutter, much like that of a young maiden discovering love for the first time. This was a wonderful feeling that she had never experienced before. Regardless of how strong she was still a woman, and she craved someone to protect and cherish her daughter. This moment, Arahang was giving her all of that, so she didn't regret her decision at all. In fact, she was extremely pleased with how decisive she was. Everything looked very simple now, but if she had refused his proposal in front of all of these bystanders, then their love story would have most likely concluded before it had even begun. Similarly, Arahang was also extremely pleased with himself. He had just attained the invincible Vajra physique and landed the woman of his heart with the shortest proposal in history. He felt as if he had instantly reached the peak of his life. Tang Wuling was also genuinely happy for Arahang, but right now, he had to face the fury of all of the other battle gods. Guan Yue raised a hand to instruct the battle gods to stand down, then emerged from their camp. Sex Master Tang, quite a few battles have already passed, but we still don't know why you've decided to visit our battle god hell. Tang Wuling smiled and replied, I had heard that the battle god hall was the central hub for the most powerful beings in the entire federation, and we came here to learn from the best. Also, some of us have military backgrounds, and we heard that we could challenge the battle god hall for promotions, so we decided to give it a try. Indeed, aside from Arahang and Lingzichen, everyone else in the group had been involved in the military in the past. Guan Yue replied, I see, but if I'm not mistaken, you're already a major general of the Blood God Legion. That is the highest rank that we can promote you to here. Tang Wuling faltered slightly upon hearing this. This wasn't what Cao Daja had told him. However, he quickly recovered and replied, that's all right. I'll try to get all of my friends to also reach the major general then. Aside from my senior disciple brother and another companion of mine, the rest of us are all military officials. Indeed, all of them had joined different legions and had reached the lieutenant colonel rank as a minimum. Take Sima Jinkai for example. He was once a senior colonel of the Southern Legion and was only one step away from becoming a major general. A faint smile appeared on Guan Yue's face, and he said, Sex Master Tang, I think it would be a waste of time to continue these battles one by one. There are 5 people left on each side, so why don't we have a group battle? If you win, that'll be sufficient proof of your power, and you'll be able to skip the first 16 floors to undertake the examinations on the final 2 floors. What do you think? Tang Wuling's heart stirred slightly upon hearing this, and he could see that there was a meaningful look in Guan Yue's eyes. On the surface, they would be accepting a disadvantage if they were to agree to this group battle. Under the current circumstances, they were able to choose their opponents, but that luxury wouldn't be afforded to them in a group battle. However, Guan Yue had made it clear that if they could win this group battle, they would be able to skip the first 16 levels and directly reach the final 2 levels, thereby conserving a significant amount of time, which was definitely a good thing. However, the main issue here was that it definitely wasn't going to be an easy task to win this 5-on-5 battle. Among the remaining battle gods, there was still the second battle god in Guan Yue, who was a limit Douluo. Could they win against such a formidable lineup? Currently, the 5 people from the Shrek Academy camp yet to challenge a battle god were Tang Wuling, Sima Jinkai, Yuan Yui, Xu Shaoan, and Lingzichen. Chapter 1692. They had to face Guan Yue, as well as the 2nd, 5th, 8th, and 13th battle gods, which was close to the most powerful lineup from the battle god hall. Aside from Chen Xinji's absence, the battle god hall was at full strength, and the 4 battle gods were all exceptionally powerful with their own individual characteristics. Judging from their numbers and the descriptions of the battle gods provided to him by Cao Daja, he could roughly guess the identities of these battle gods. The one standing at the very back was the female 13th battle god, who had carried the gluttony Douluo away for treatment following his defeat. The passage of time had left its mark on her appearance, but it was obvious that she would have been a stunning beauty in her youth. Cao Daja had told him that there was only a single battle god who could be considered to be a beauty, and that was divine sword Douluo Sumungjun, so that had to be her. She still hadn't reached the hyper Douluo level yet, but that didn't mean that she was weak. On the contrary, her inclusion would make it a lot more difficult for Tang Wuling and the others to win this 5-on-5 battle. This was because the divine sword Douluo was always accompanied by the imperial sword Douluo, who had never once fallen out of the top 3 battle gods in the past 20 years. The 1st and 3rd battle gods had already been challenged in one-on-one battles, so the 2nd battle god had to be imperial sword Douluo Long Tianwu. He was a true pillar of the battle god hall, and what was most terrifying of all was that he was the spouse of the divine sword Douluo, with whom he shared a soul fusion skill. Once their soul fusion skill was unleashed, they would be comparable to a limit Douluo, which meant that there were essentially 2 limit Douluo among the 5 remaining battle gods. Furthermore, Tang Wuling had also guessed the identity of the 5th battle god, who was quite handsome with a set of long and slim fingers. This was most likely the most powerful control system soul master of the battle god hall, demonic Sida Douluo Mozahong, who possessed the demonic curse to the martial soul. He had always been renowned as one of the most difficult battle gods to overcome. As for the 8th battle god, regardless of who he was, he definitely wouldn't be an easy opponent. Thus, this was a very formidable lineup, and with the exception of Chen Xinji, it was definitely one of the most fearsome 5-man lineups that the battle god hall could muster up. Could Tang Wuling and the others really defeat them in a 5-on-5 battle? Tang Wuling hesitated momentarily before replying, surely this place isn't big enough for a 5-on-5 battle. Indeed, the battle area was quite large for one-on-one battles, but it was far too restrictive for a 5-on-5 battle, and that wasn't even taking into account the fact that the protective barrier definitely wouldn't be able to handle a battle between so many powerful beings. Guan Yue smiled and replied, there's no need to worry about that. Sect Master Tang, our battle god hall has a small world, and the battle will take place there. The rules are very simple and fair. The small world won't assist us unfairly in any way, and you can all have an hour to acclimate yourselves with the environment in there. It was clear that Guan Yue was trying to turn the tables in one fell swoop. Thus far, they had suffered 3 losses and 2 ties, although it could be argued that it was more like 4 losses and 1 tie. If they could win this 5-on-5 battle, then they would win the overall match. This was quite a cunning plan from Guan Yue. Tang Wuling suddenly smiled and nodded in response. All right, we'll do as you say then. Guan Yue replied, all right, then come with me, everyone. Shu Lizzie said, go on, Captain, I'll stay here with Sisters England. Tang Wuling patted him on the shoulder and nodded in response. Guan Yue said, you can rest assured, we'll be sure to protect her and ensure that no harm befalls her in our battle god hall. Thank you, Tang Wuling replied. Come with me. The innermost wall on the first floor parted to reveal a huge passageway. The battle guards led from the front, while Tang Wuling and his friends followed along behind them, with the exceptions of Shu Lizzie and New Zealand. Ling Zichen tugged on Tang Wuling's sleeve and said in a low voice, "Are you stupid? Our chances of victory would be much higher in one-on-one battles. You don't seem like the type to lack self-confidence." Tang Wuling countered. Ling Zichen grumbled, "I'm not lacking self-confidence. I'm lacking confidence in you. Are you telling me you have a chance at defeating a Lingzim at Douluo? How do you know I don't have a chance?" Tang Wuling asked. "Fine. Do what you want, but don't come crying to me when you lose." Ling Zichen snapped. Aside from Ling Zichen, no one else doubted Tang Wuling's decision. Having been together for so long, they knew that Tang Wuling had to have his reasons for accepting this seemingly disadvantageous arrangement. They knew that Tang Wuling wasn't the type of person to take such an important matter lightly. After walking for around 100 meters along the passageway, a round platform with a diameter of roughly 20 meters appeared up ahead. Everyone piled onto the platform, and there was not a lot of space to move around. Even Ling Zichen was struck by a sense of awe by this situation. After all, there were over 10 titled Douluos gathered on this small platform. The battle she had just witnessed had left a very deep impression on her, particularly the final battle between Arahang and Ao Rui. That battle had completely changed her outlook on the limits of the human body. During their past interactions, Arahang had always been a very easygoing and happy-go-lucky character, and Ling Zichen had always been under the impression that he was like Tang Wuling's sidekick. Who could have imagined that he would possess powers close to the limit Douluo level? Shrek Academy really was a den for monsters. It was exactly because of this that she was struggling to see through Tang Wuling. Why was it that everyone around him was so powerful, but they were all willing to follow his lead? The platform began to slowly descend, and gentle white light emanated from the surrounding walls. It was clear that this light was being emitted by soul circuits. As expected of the central hub for the most powerful beings in the Federation, every single place in the battle guard hall seemed to be extremely resolute and well constructed. The platform gradually began to accelerate during its descent, causing the surroundings to blur in a surreal manner. Tang Wuling was very calm as he stood still on the spot, while most of the battle guards had their eyes fixed on Arahang. The power he had displayed earlier had been truly terrifying, and even now, Ao Rui still hadn't fully recovered from their battle. If possible, he never wanted to face an opponent like this again. Throughout that entire battle, he was completely suffocated and powerless. Never had a battle felt so terrible for him. Thankfully, he wasn't going to be participating in the 5-on-5 battle. This was a must-win battle for the battle guard hall. Otherwise, they would suffer 9 losses and a tie to the Shrek Academy camp, and that would be a historically monumental outcome, but for all the wrong reasons. Chapter 1693. As such, all of the remaining battle guards were determined to turn the tables, but at the same time, they were all under immense pressure. They did have the equivalent of 2 limit Douluos among their ranks, but they were up against the miracle worker that was the Tang sect master. The most terrifying thing about him was the rate of his progression. Shu Lizzie had already displayed a full suit of 4-word battle armor. It was to say that Tang Wuling wouldn't also have a full suit of 4-word battle armor. He wasn't far away from the limit Douluo level. If he were also a 4-word battle armor master, then there was a chance that he would be a match for Guan Yue. Tang Wuling's crushing victory over Kaienkyu's Hanging had left all of the battle guards with extremely deep impressions, and none of them knew where Tang Wuling's limits were, nor how much he had improved since that battle. Thus, even though the battle guard hall held the theoretical advantage during this 5-on-5 battle, none of the battle guards dared to take the Shrek Academy camp lightly. Finally, the platform drew to a halt, and one of the walls opened up, following which Guan Yue led everyone into a spacious hall. The surrounding area was riddled with complex cell circuits that were emanating faint red light, making one feel as if they were inside a human body that was filled with blood vessels. Guan Yue drew to a halt as he reached the center of the hall, then pressed his right hand forward, and the surrounding soul formation immediately lit up as a beam of red light shone down from above, forming a ball of light that was around half a meter in diameter in front of Guan Yue. Guan Yue laid his hand onto the ball of light as his eyes narrowed slightly, and a beam of light suddenly projected into midair, transforming into a square light screen, upon which a map was depicted. This small world is known as the Battle God Arena. It's not very large, with an area of only around 5 square kilometers, but you can rest assured in the knowledge that it's very stable. As you can see from the map, there are 2 clearly segmented sides in this small world, and this place is normally used for training for us battle gods. Guan Yue introduced. Just as he had said, there was what appeared to be a river running from the upper left corner to the bottom right corner of the map, splitting the area up into 2 triangles. One of the triangles had red annotations, while the other was annotated in blue, making the divide very clear, and there was a round symbol situated both the upper right corner and the bottom left corner, indicating the top corner of each of the 2 areas. Guan Yue continued. This small world was created by our battle god hall, and every single place within it was custom made. In order to ensure safety, the state of the 2 areas are very similar. There will be some simulated soul beasts of similar power levels in both areas, and each area will have a 100,000-year-old soul beast that'll attack as soon as its territory is encroached upon. If you manage to kill that soul beast, you'll receive an overall boost, such as an increase in soul power by 10%. The boost is completely random, so I can't tell you what it is in advance. Once we enter the small world, each of our 2 camps will appear at one of the top corners, which are the starting points. Within each starting point is a defensive turret that is powerful enough to pose a threat to titled Douluo level 3-word battle armor masters, and it'll only attack members of the opposing camp. Setting off from the starting point, there are 3 paths, one on each side of the map, and one through the center, through which the opposing camp's territory can be accessed. Of course, you can also pass through the forests and valleys on the map, but that'll require a longer journey. Furthermore, there are only 3 paths leading to the entrance of each starting point, so those are the only 3 avenues to reach the opposing camp's starting point. The objective is to destroy the opposing camp's starting point while keeping your own intact. At the conclusion of Guan Yue's explanation, Tang Wuling was left feeling quite stunned. Shrek Academy had also been able to create a small world of its own, but it would have definitely required several times the expenditure to create a small world like this, which was completely uniform and could fit their criteria. At the very least, Tang Wuling didn't think that the current Shrek Academy would be able to accomplish this. This was a reflection of the Federation's unreserved support toward the Battle Guard Hall. Furthermore, this was a very interesting mode of battle that would test both power and intellect. The Battle Guards were more familiar with the map, and that was a significant advantage, so it was no wonder that Guan Yue was giving them an hour to familiarize themselves with this small world. Also, only those 3 paths are safe from soul beasts. You could get attacked by soul beasts at any time if you choose to take any other path, and the soul beasts in both areas do not discriminate between targets. Even if you kill the soul beasts, they'll be resurrected at the same location in a short time. Guan Yue added with a cunning smile. Tang Wuling took a deep breath and said, "All right, please take us into the small world. Oh, by the way, what types of soul beasts are there in the Battle God Arena? This is something that I'm sure all of the battle gods are already aware of, so I believe we have a right to know this." Guan Yue paused momentarily before replying. "I can't tell you exactly what species of soul beasts are in there as even we don't fully know. For training purposes, the soul beasts that appear in the Battle God Arena are randomly generated. However, what I can tell you is that the 2 100,000-year-old soul beasts are simulated based on the Dark Demonic Dragon and the Gold-Eyed Black Dragon King, both of which were part of the 10 great beasts of the Douluo continent at some point. Tang Wuling couldn't help but recall back to their encounter with the beast god in the Great Star Dou Forest upon hearing these 2 names. That had truly been a perilous experience. Even though the beast god hadn't come after him since then, he couldn't help but be wary of a creature that was even more powerful than the likes of Infernal King Douluo Harissa. They're not actually as powerful as the beast god of the past, right? Tang Wuling asked. Guan Yue smiled and replied, "Of course not. If the beast god is still alive, then it would be close to 1 million years of age. Even our whole master may not be a match for it, let alone the rest of us. The Gold-Eyed Black Dragon King in the Battle God Arena is only at the 100,000-year level." Tang Wuling nodded in response. "All right, I understand." Guan Yue continued. "I'm going to send you into the small world so you can acclimate yourself with its environment, and you'll be notified to go to the starting point in an hour." Guan Yue pointed a finger at the red ball of light before him as he spoke, and an even larger light screen was projected, depicting a lush forest. Immediately thereafter, 5 beams of light shone down upon Tang Wuling and the others, and they vanished into the ball of red light in a flash. Chapter 1694. As for Arahang and the others, they were able to immediately see Tang Wulin's group on the larger screen. This really was an incredible small world, regardless of whether it was the Tang Sect, Shrek Academy, the Battle God Hall, or the Spirit Pagoda. All of these top-tier powers had phenomenal resources, some of which were open to the public for profit, such as the Spirit Pagoda's Myriad Beast plane, while others were kept secret and used like this Battle God Arena. The most important thing to maintain in a small world was stability. If an issue were to arise with stability, the small world could collapse, and that could even affect the main plane. Tang Wulin and the others felt the space warp around them before they appeared in another world amid a flash of light. They were situated on an altar-like round platform, and they couldn't see anything through the map earlier, but upon arriving in the Battle God Arena, they discovered that this entire place was filled with a profound aura. The altar itself was a giant soul formation, upon which were engraved all types of different patterns. As the current head researcher of the Tang Sect Su Technology Research Center, Ling Zichen's knowledge in soul technology was unmatched, and her attention was immediately drawn to this soul formation. It was clear that the Battle God Hall was unaware of her existence. Otherwise, they would have seriously reconsidered allowing Tang Wulin's group to enter this small world and see all of this. As soon as Ling Zichen's gaze fell upon the soul formation, she was instantly hooked. This is a soul teleportation formation that's already been lost to time. I thought it only existed in legends. I can't believe there's a functioning one in the Battle God Hall. Go and explore the area. I have to stay here and memorize this entire formation. Ha ha ha. The Battle God Hall has made a big mistake by allowing me into this place. In my eyes, this thing is no less valuable than eternal heaven. They must have let us in here thinking that no one would be able to interpret it. Tang Wulin could see that Ling Zichen had entered her insane state again, and he knew that she was not to be argued with in this state. All right, we'll be back soon. Make sure to disguise what you're doing. The Battle Gods should be able to conduct surveillance on us from the outside. Don't worry, they've already let us in. What are they going to do? Besides, they have no idea that I can interpret this formation. This complexity of this thing outstrips even that of eternal heaven, and it's related to an extremely important research project of mine. So all I have to do is record the most important parts, then study them in greater depth when I get back. If this research project comes into fruition, it would advance human soul technology by several decades, and there's even a chance that I could develop an energy core that could fuel space exploration. Tang Wulin's eyes lit up upon hearing this. To the average person, space exploration was a completely foreign concept that they had no interest in, but this was something that he would have to think about sooner or later as he had to go find his parents. Thus, Tang Wulin didn't say anything further as he departed with his friends. As soon as they emerged from the altar, they were greeted by the sight of a tall pagoda. The pagoda was entirely constructed from metal and was quite antiquated in appearance. However, just like the other places in the Battle God Hall, it was riddled with all types of complex soul circuits. Why does the Battle God Hall insist on exposing the soul circuits like this? Can't they be hidden on the inside? Is this done just to show off? Shu Shaoan mused. Tang Wulin shook his head in response. There's a capacity issue at play here. This pagoda must be filled with soul circuits, and there's not enough internal storage, so there's spillover onto the outside. These types of cutting-edge soul tools aren't the same as our battle armor. The surface of our battle armor needs to possess sufficient defensive prowess, and if soul circuits were carved on the outside, they would be far too prone to damage. However, a stationary soul tool like this doesn't share the same issue. This is most likely the defensive turret in the starting point. The top of the defensive turret was very interesting as it was comprised of a massive golden crystal. Contrasting with the rest of the turret, just this crystal alone was over 2 meters tall, and it was giving off strong soul power fluctuations. Yuan and Yui's eyes narrowed slightly upon seeing this. I remember learning about this type of defensive soul tool back at the academy. It said that the most powerful defensive soul tools possess power comparable to ninth-grade soul missiles, and they can sustain this level of power output over a long period of time. However, at the same time, they're also astronomically expensive to construct, and all research into this type of soul tool ceased once the Federation became united, as there's no way to transport them, so they can only act as stationary defensive units. Tang Wulin nodded as he said, I've seen similar soul tools at the exit of the Abyssal Passageway during my time in the Blood God Legion. However, those ones were far smaller than this soul tool. Looks like the Battle God Hall really has invested heavily into this small plane. Shu Shaoan pursed her lips as she said, it's all money from the Federation. What do we do now, Captain? Follow me, everyone. According to the map, there are 3 paths leading into one another's territory, so we have to defend those paths. As a result, we'll have to split up. The other areas are comprised of forests and valleys, and the first thing we have to do is find out just how powerful the soul beasts in those areas are. That'll allow us to decide whether we can infiltrate the opposing area through those terrains. Tang Wulin said. Sima Jinkai's lips trembled slightly as he communicated something to Tang Wulin through voice transmission, to which a faint smile appeared on Tang Wulin's face. My thoughts exactly. However, there's no rush. We have to hide our objective for now. Let's go. After skirting around the massive defensive turret, they were finally able to see the scale of the starting point. The entire starting point was around 1,000 square meters in area, and the 3 exits were each 20 meters wide, opening up to straight paths that led into the distance. However, there was a blanket of mist up ahead that prevented one from being able to clearly see what was in the distance. This was something that Tang Wulin had already anticipated. After all, without this visual deterrent, each side would be able to see straight into the other side's starting point. Through his prior observation of the map, Tang Wulin had already discovered that the most convenient and shortest path to the opposing territory was the middle path, so that was the path that would undoubtedly have to be the most heavily guarded one. If the opposition were to break through their defenses on the middle path and enter their territory, then they would be forced into passive defense. After emerging from the middle exit, there was a massive lush forest, from within which some strange sounds could be heard. In Tang Wulin's eyes, this place was very much reminiscent of the Great Star Dou Forest, and in particular, their auras were very similar. Tang Wulin led from the front, while Sima Jinkai and Yuan and Yui trailed behind slightly while walking on either side of him, forming a triangle with Shu Shaoan at the center. After stepping into the forest, they were immediately met with a refreshing scent, and their field of view was obstructed by the lush undergrowth up ahead. Even so, it was very enjoyable to be in a place with a strong natural aura. Chapter 1695. When I'm an old woman, I'm going to find a forest like this to settle in permanently and build a wooden cabin there. Shu Shaoan said with a hopeful expression. Tang Wulin smiled and said, You're still far from becoming an old woman. Perhaps you would have already changed your mind by then. Just as he was speaking, his eyes suddenly turned purple, and he reached out with his right hand, which instantly swelled in size as a layer of fine golden dragon scales appeared over its surface. A faint clang rang out, indicating that Tang Wulin had caught something, and sure enough, a small snake that was just over a meter in length had appeared in his grasp. The snake's entire body was completely transparent, and after being caught by Tang Wulin, it was struggling with all its might. Only then did it become just barely visible. This is a bone-piercing snake, and it looks to be only at the 100-year level. Ignorance really is bliss. Sima Jinkai chuckled. In contrast, Tang Wulin's brows were slightly furrowed as he discovered that this bone-piercing snake's eyes were red. Generally speaking, a normal bone-piercing snake's eyes were supposed to be grey, and they would turn transparent along with its body. He had discovered this snake just now not because he had sensed it, but because he had caught sight of its red eyes. This is not an ordinary bone-piercing snake. Otherwise, it wouldn't have had the courage to attack me, Tang Wulin said. His golden dragon king ensured that all dragons and creatures related to dragons felt a sense of closeness or reverence toward him. Even if they were to harbor animosity toward him, it would be significantly diminished. This bone-piercing snake was only at the 100-year level, so there was no way that it should have approached Tang Wulin with anything other than friendly intentions. Yuan and Wei speculated. Could it be that all of the soul beasts here are simulated by the Battle God Hall? They did say that all of the soul beasts could be quickly resurrected, and that they harbored enmity toward all soul masters. Tang Wulin nodded in response. I think you're onto something there. Seeing as this was nothing more than a simulation, Tang Wulin felt no need to spare the bone-piercing snake and instantly crushed its head. As a result, the bone-piercing snake immediately exploded into specks of light that scattered through the air before fusing into the bodies of Tang Wulin and the others, enhancing everyone's powers, albeit only by the most minute of margins. Did you guys feel that? Tang Wulin asked. Yuan and Yui replied, I did. It seems like killing the soul beasts here can enhance our powers. Even though this boost will most likely only last during our time in this plane, it should at least be helpful during the upcoming battle. Sima Jinkai chimed in. That has to be the case. They said that killing the 2 100,000-year-old soul beasts would grant us random boosts, but it looks like they intentionally neglected to tell us that killing other soul beasts would also grant us enhancements, just not to the same extent. Those battle gods really are a cunning bunch. Tang Wulin smiled and said, they gave us an hour to explore. If we haven't figured it out by the end, then we can't really blame them. Let's keep going and see if all of these soul beasts can boost our powers. Yuan, you stay here and observe how long it takes for the bone-piercing snake we just killed to be resurrected. All right. An hour passed by very quickly, and as Tang Wulin and the others returned to their starting point, they discovered that Ling Zichen was still seated on the spot, having seemingly entered a meditative state. This isn't going to turn into a 4-on-5 battle, is it? Xu Shaoan said in a resigned manner. Tang Wuling replied, there's no helping it. Zichen told me that this soul formation is just as important to her as eternal heaven, so we'll just have to leave her here and do the best that we can. All right, but our original strategy for this battle involves her. How are we going to execute the strategy now? Tang Wuling replied, we'll have to alter the strategy, I think. All of a sudden, Ling Zichen opened her eyes and sprang to her feet. There's no need for that. Tell me what I need to do. Tang Wuling could see that her eyes were filled with extreme excitement, and it was clear that she had reached some massive rewards during this past hour. Right at this moment, Guan Yue's voice rang out from the heavens. Are you ready, Sect Master Tang? We've already entered the battle god arena, and the battle will commence in 1 minute. Tang Wuling replied, we're ready. Let's begin in 1 minute. A beam of light shone down from the sky, and a 60-second countdown timer appeared. At the same time, a light barrier appeared over each of the starting point's 3 exits, clearly to prevent them from leaving within this 60-second time frame. Tang Wuling wasn't concerned about the fairness of this battle. After all, the battle gods surely wouldn't stoop that low. Tang Wuling quickly began to transmit his voice toward Ling Zichen, and a peculiar look appeared on her face as she listened to what he had to say. You really are a tricky bastard. Ling Zichen said as she appraised him with a wary expression. All's fair in love and war. Tang Wuling replied with a nonchalant shrug. 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1. Begin. The countdown timer ran out, and the light barriers in front of the 3 exits also vanished. Tang Wuling gave his companions a quick nod, and Yuan and Yui and Xu Shaoan rushed toward the path on the left together, while Tang Wuling and Sima Jinkai headed toward the path on the right, leaving the middle path to Ling Zichen. Thus, the 5 of them promptly sped out of the starting point, and the 5 battle gods were also doing the same thing. After entering the path on the right, Tang Wuling and Sima Jinkai immediately split up with the former rushing into the forest, while the latter continued along the path. Purple light flashed within Tang Wuling's eyes, and his spiritual power spread out of his body. With his spirit domain realm spiritual power, he was able to sense even the most minute activity within a radius of a kilometer, and he quickly discovered his first target. His target seemed to have sensed his presence as well, and it charged out of the undergrowth directly toward Tang Wuling, revealing itself to be a wild boar with metallic grey fur. Every single strand of fur was standing up on end like a sharp needle, granting it a natural suit of armor. Among soul beasts of the same caliber, this one definitely had top-tier defensive prowess. A faint smile appeared on Tang Wuling's face as light flashed from his body, and an enormous figure appeared. The mountainous figure stomped the boar into the ground with ease, reducing it to specks of light that spread through the air, injecting themselves into the bodies of Tang Wuling and his companions further away. Tang Wuling looked up to find that the massive creature was bearing its fangs at him in an expression akin to a smile. The last time that Tang Wuling had released his tyrant dragon soul spirit was during the trial of 5 gods in the Douluo Empire. The tyrant dragon had grown alongside him for many years, and it had undergone a drastic transformation during this time. It was renowned as a kind of land dragons, possessing power equivalent to that of a true dragon even though it was only a second-rate dragon. Its body was close to 100 meters tall, and its entire body was covered in dark golden scales, each of which was the size of a table. Every single scale was extremely thick and heavy, and they were covered in a clear layer of enamel. Chapter 1696. The most prominent transformation had been made by the wings on its back. Back when these wings had first appeared, they had been too small to support the tyrant dragon's enormous weight, so they could only assist it in jumping. However, its wings were now at least 5 times as large as they had been in the past, and they draped over its body like a massive cape, giving it a very dashing appearance. A wide smile appeared on Tang Wuling's face as he instructed, demolish this place. In terms of pure destructive power, even the dusk gold dreadclaw bear that was one of the current 10 great beasts couldn't compare with this tyrant dragon, which had evolved to close to the 100,000-year level. The tyrant dragon let loose a roar of excitement as it swept its giant tail through the first like an unstoppable bulldozer, instantly felling a huge cluster of trees, as well as 3 weaker soul beasts. Light flashed from Tang Wuling's body again, and the golden figure shot forth. The golden figure's body was over 30 meters in length and was covered in golden scales. It had a pair of wings on its back, and its eyes were flashing with an intelligent golden light. Looking at the current Goldzorn, no one would have been able to imagine that it had once been a defective martial soul. Goldzorn's figure hadn't changed much, but it was looking less and less like a snake, and much more like a dragon. In fact, it was very similar to Tang Wuling's golden dragon true body. Compared to the holy radiant dragon, Goldzorn possessed superior strength, and its aura was not inferior to the tyrant dragon's in the slightest. It lowered its head to allow itself to be petted by Tang Wuling, who laid a hand on its head with a smile, and said, you can go to the left. Goldzorn let loose a loud roar and instantly flapped its wings to rise up into the air, flying toward the left as it had been instructed. Elsewhere, Imperial Sword Douluo Long Tianwu suddenly stopped in his tracks, and his brows furrowed slightly as he turned to Divine Sword Douluo Su Munjun. Did you hear that, Munjun? Was that the voice of the gold-eyed black dragon king or the dark demonic dragon? Why did it sound like neither of them? Su Munjun shook her head in response. I'm not sure. The sound is coming from very far away, and you're right in that it doesn't sound like either of the dragons. What should we do? Continue as planned. Our opponents must have already discovered that they can enhance themselves by killing the soul beasts in the battle god arena, so our objective will be to disrupt them. We'll kill the most powerful 10,000-year-old soul beasts on their side to enhance ourselves, then meet up with the others to end this battle as soon as possible. All right. The 2 battle gods were very fast, and they soon arrived at the river that split the battle god arena. The river was around 100 meters wide, but it was no ordinary river in that it was inhabited by water-dwelling soul beasts, so it was possible to be attacked even while crossing the river. The 2 100,000-year-old soul beasts in the battle god arena were situated near this river, except one was on the left side closer to the opposing territory, while the other was on the right side very close to them. 100,000-year-old soul beasts were extremely fearsome, so they didn't dare to challenge one of them until they reunited with the other battle gods, thereby giving them an absolute advantage. As soon as they had sufficient time to slay this 100,000-year-old soul beast, they would do so right away to give themselves an even greater advantage. The battle gods were very confident in this 5-on-5 match as they were far too familiar with this place. All of the battle gods had spent countless hours in this small plain, while Tang Wuling and the others had only been given 1 hour. This was the premium training ground of the battle god hall, and the battle gods would often spar and cultivate here. On the other side of the river was a shadowy forest, and in contrast with the other parts of the forest, this area was black in color, giving off a very strange and ominous appearance. Both Long Tianwu and Su Munjun were aware that that was where one of the 100,000-year-old soul beasts was residing. The gold-eyed black dragon king was on the other side of the river, while the dark demonic dragon resided on this side. Both of the battle gods were titled Douluos, and Long Tianwu was already close to the limit Douluo level, so it wouldn't be an issue for him to face the average 100,000-year-old soul beast. However, dragon-type soul beasts were a different story. Both the dark demonic dragon and gold-eyed black dragon king stood at the very pinnacle of the soul beast world, and once they reached the 100,000-year level, they were very close in power to human limit Douluo. Even limit Douluo may not be able to defeat them without using their battle armor. In the distant past, humans had always struggled for survival under the reign of the soul beasts, and even with the emergence of soul masters, humans were still unable to truly contend with soul beasts. That only changed as soul technology bolstered the power of the entire human population, gradually allowing the human race to turn the tables, resulting in this current situation, where soul beasts were on the brink of extinction. 100,000-year level gold-eyed black dragon kings and dark demonic dragons were considered to be extremely fearsome even in the heyday of the soul beasts, so they certainly weren't going to be easy prey. Right as Long Tianwu and Su Munjun were about to cross the river to disrupt Tang Wuling's group, a deafening dragon's roar suddenly rang out from the other side of the river. The roar was filled with fury, and initially, it was very loud, but as it neared its conclusion, it suddenly turned into a strange strangled cry that was almost a sob. Long Tianwu and Su Munjun both exchanged a glance as they drew to an involuntary halt upon hearing this. Back when they were outside the small plain, they were able to see through the light screen that Tang Wuling and the others had explored the plain while killing soul beasts, but during this entire process, they made sure to avoid the places where the 2 100,000-year-old soul beasts were residing. However, this was clearly the roar of the dark demonic dragon, which meant that someone from Shrek Academy was attacking it. Why were they doing this? Did they have a death wish? Even for the 2 of them, a price would have to be paid if they wanted to kill the dark demonic dragon, and the battle would also be extremely taxing for them. The battle had only just begun, and the 2 100,000-year-old soul beasts were set to be in slumber, and only after around half an hour would they awaken before roaming through the forest. Tang Wuling and the others were clearly unaware of this, and this was one part of the home court advantage the battle gods had up their sleeves. The fact that the dark demonic dragon had already awakened indicated that someone had to have encroached upon its territory and roused it from its slumber. Have they gone insane? Su Mungjun said in an incredulous manner. Long Tianwu's brows were tightly furrowed as he replied, but Tang Wuling is not to be underestimated. After all, no one becomes the Tang sect master and Sea God's pavilion master at such a young age by accident. Theoretically speaking, he shouldn't be making such a simple error. Su Mungjun asked, what should we do? Should we go and take a look? Long Tianwu shook his head in response. Let's wait for a while longer. This could quite possibly be a plot where they intentionally awaken the dark demonic dragon, then retreat to a nearby area to ambush us. As such, if we go there now, we could be caught in a sneak attack. We both know how powerful the dark demonic dragon is, even if they're attacking the dark demonic dragon. There's no way they can take it down in a short time. If everything goes quiet, then that means they're planning an ambush. If the commotion continues, then that indicates that they really are battling the dark demonic, and we can lie in wait to benefit from the aftermath of that clash. Chapter 1697. Su Mengun nodded in agreement, and thus, the two battle gods stopped beside the lake and released their spiritual power to sense the energy fluctuations in the distance. At this moment, everyone in the battle god hall outside of the battle god arena was spectating this battle through the big screen. There were only 3 people from the Shrek Academy camp spectating the battle, namely Araheng, Shishi, and Yue's Hengyu, as Yizinglen and Shu Lizzie were still on the first level. The trio was naturally accompanied by the 5 battle gods, and at this point, Aorui had already recovered from his battle, but he was still looking at Araheng with a strange look in his eyes. In particular, he was filled with resignation and rage at the sight of Ximengshan willingly standing beside Araheng. The battle god hall had never been embarrassed like this before. They had been losing all of the battles against the challengers, and a battle god had even been taken to become the spouse of one of the challengers. The frustration in Aorui's heart couldn't be articulated into words, and the battle gods who had lost their battles were also in a foul mood. As such, there was clear animosity in their eyes as they appraised the Shrek Academy camp. They could only hope that the battle god hall would be able to turn the tables in this 5-on-5 battle. In their eyes, Guan Yue had made an excellent decision. Guan Yue was a limit Douluo, but it wasn't like Tang Wuling hadn't challenged limit Douluo in the past, so if a battle were to take place between them, a victory wouldn't be guaranteed. Araheng's incredible display of power had made them realize that the challengers were no slouches, and if the one-on-one battles were to continue, they would definitely suffer more losses. Essentially, that would be the equivalent of the battle god hall losing to Shrek Academy and the Tang sect. Furthermore, the challengers were all part of the younger generation, while the battle god hall was fielding virtually its most powerful lineup with the exception of Chen Xinji. As such, a loss under these circumstances would be twice as embarrassing. However, a group battle like this would be a different story. If they were to win, they would secure 5 wins, thereby granting them victory on the overall scoreline. As such, all of the battle gods were filled with anticipation and confidence toward this group battle. This was the home court of the battle god hall. There was no way they could lose under these conditions. This was the first time that the Shrek Academy camp had come to the battle god arena, and they were completely unfamiliar with everything in there. If the battle gods were to lose under such favorable circumstances, then they would be thoroughly humiliated. Araheng was also spectating the battle intently, and as the battle commenced, he turned to Ximengshan and asked, "Do you think we can win, honey?" Ever since his successful proposal, he had been holding on to Ximengshan's hand the entire time. Ximengshan had already tried to resist a few times, but her strength was obviously no match for Araheng's. However, it was exactly because of this that she was able to feel Araheng's fervent heart, so in the end, she ceased her protests and simply allowed her hand to be held. Ximengshan took a glance at him and shook her head in response. "You won't win." Araheng replied with a wide smile. "I wouldn't be so sure about that. I'm very confident in my junior disciple brother." Aorui could naturally hear their conversation, and he harumphed coldly. "Keep dreaming. Don't forget that this is our territory." Araheng chuckled. "Then how about we make a bet? Aren't you the first battle god? I'm sure you have some considerable wealth. My wife is a member of your battle god hall, so surely you should be paying a dowry for her. How about we bet on that? If you lose, then pay a dowry for my wife. I won't ask for too much, just a few tons each of several types of uncommon metals. That should be enough for my junior disciple brother to craft a suit of 4-word battle armor for my wife as a marriage present." Ximengshan was a little angry to hear Araheng calling her his wife, and he was just about to protest, but her words got stuck in her throat upon hearing mention of a suit of 4-word battle armor. At her age and cultivation rank, there were very few things that were alluring to her in this world, but 4-word battle armor was definitely near the top of that exclusive list, particularly due to the unique path she had taken. Her 3-word battle armor granted her the extremely powerful sequence of 3 attacks, but there was no way for her to sustain such a fierce assault. However, she was confident that this wouldn't be an issue if she could upgrade her battle armor to the 4-word level. She looked up at the hulking tower of a man standing beside her, and a surge of warmth welled up in her heart. Even though they had only known each other for such a short time, he was treating her better than any other man ever had. Perhaps her decision had been an impulsive one, but she didn't regret it in the slightest. In contrast with her bliss, Aorui was absolutely fuming. A few tons each of several types of uncommon metals. Were uncommon metals supposed to be grown on trees? What frustrated him even more was Ximengshan's attitude to all of this. Even the animosity in the eyes of the other battle gods had diminished slightly upon hearing this. Araheng seemed to be very rough around the edges, but he had hit the nail right on the head here. The fact of the matter was that they had the ability to construct suits of 4-word battle armor. Could the battle god hall do the same? Zhenhua's physical condition had been on a slow decline, and it had been a very long time since a new suit of 4-word battle armor had last appeared on the continent. The fact that Tang Wuling was a divine blacksmith had become common knowledge quite a while ago, and it was supported by the fact that all of his friends were wearing pieces of 4-word battle armor. The fact that Ximengshan was going to receive a suit of 4-word battle armor as a marriage present was truly very astonishing to the battle gods. Furthermore, it made them realize that if they were to offend Shrek Academy and the Tang sect, they could essentially wave goodbye to the prospect of ever attaining a suit of 4-word battle armor, and that was the reason for the sudden drop in their hostility. "You sure aren't shy? Do you think uncommon metals are that easy to obtain?" Aorui countered in an enraged voice. Araheng's brows furrowed slightly upon hearing this. "I didn't think your battle god hall was this poor. You can't even bring out a few tons of uncommon metals as a dowry for one of your battle gods." Aorui took a deep breath to compose himself, then said, "If she really does decide to marry you, then she can choose the uncommon metals she requires for her suit of battle armor, but anything beyond that is out of the equation. Of course, you also have to win this battle first." Having been companions and colleagues for so many years, this was an obligatory gesture that he had to make for Ximengshan. Besides, he didn't think that Tang Wuling and the others could win anyway. "All right, you have yourself a deal," Araheng replied without any hesitation. "What if you lose?" Aorui asked in a cold voice. "Then we won't ask for a dowry," Araheng replied in a justified manner, as if he were making a huge sacrifice. "What?" Aorui almost threw up a mouthful of blood upon hearing this. This was a man comparable in power to a limit Douluo. How could he be so shameless? Essentially, the bet that he was proposing was one where there was no risk to counterbalance what was potentially a massive reward. "What's the problem?" Araheng asked with a puzzled expression, and unless one knew him extremely well, they could easily be swayed into thinking his confusion was genuine. Chapter 1698. Don't play dumb. How can you propose a bet where there's no risk for your side? Have you no shame? Aorui had completely lost his composure. As the first battle god, he couldn't even recall the last time he had been this angry. Araheng's brows furrowed slightly upon hearing this. "Oh, I didn't think your battle god hall would be so petty." Aorui's complexion was beginning to turn purple upon hearing this, and even Ximengshan couldn't just stand and watch any longer. She gave Araheng's arm a sharp tug. At the sight of the indignant look in her eyes, Araheng smiled and said, "All right, seeing as all of you are my wife's colleagues, I'll make a compromise. If we lose, we'll give your battle god hall the same amount of uncommon metals." Aorui countered. "We don't want uncommon metals. Instead, we want you to craft a suit of 4-word battle armor for our battle god hall if you lose." This was his objective for bickering with Araheng about the terms of the bet. Uncommon metals were quite precious, but a superpower organization like the battle god hall certainly wasn't lacking in such resources. What they were solely lacking in, however, was suits of 4-word battle armor. As the first battle god, he was ranked just below the hall masters, so a new suit of 4-word battle armor would undoubtedly go to him. Araheng raised an eyebrow upon hearing this. "Oi, don't try to fool me just because I look dumb. How can a suit of 4-word battle armor compare with a few pieces of uncommon metals?" "A few pieces? You're asking for a few tons." Aorui was on the verge of flaring up with rage again, but he had to remain calm as this matter concerned a suit of 4-word battle armor. "All right, then what do you want?" Aorui asked in a cold voice. Araheng replied, 10 tons each of 20 types of uncommon metals. Foo. Aori only just barely managed to catch himself before he swore out loud. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't beat Arahang in a fight, he would have already chosen violence. Do you think a suit of 4-word battle armor isn't worth this price? The Blacksmith Association was one of the wealthiest organizations in the Federation, second only to the Spirit Pagoda, precisely because high-grade metals were extremely expensive. It seemed that Arahang was asking for something completely unreasonable, but in truth, a suit of 4-word battle armor really was worth about that much. Never had Aori despised anyone more than he despised Arahang in this moment. That's out of the question, Aori said in a cold voice. All right, then forget about it, Arahang replied as he cast his gaze back toward the big screen, as if nothing had ever happened. Aori felt as if he had thrown a fist with all his might, only to strike a pile of cotton, and this was an extremely terrible feeling. The Tang Sect and Shrek Academy definitely had a massive supply of uncommon metals, but the Battle God Hall only had one suit of 4-word battle armor. As someone who was so close to the limit Douluo level, Aori naturally had an extremely strong desire for a suit of 4-word battle armor. In his eyes, all he was missing was a catalyst for him to break through to the limit Douluo level, and he was almost certain that this catalyst would be provided by a suit of 4-word battle armor. This was why he had swallowed his pride and repressed his fury to negotiate terms with Arahang, yet the negotiation was suddenly over, and there was nothing he could do about it. Aori felt so angry that he could explode. Right at this moment, the ninth battle gods, Zhang Zanheng, made his way over to him and whispered something into his ear, upon which his expression immediately eased. He had made the mistake of allowing his emotions to cloud his own judgment. What Zhang Zanheng had told him was very simple. There's no way they can win. Indeed, regardless of how high the stakes were for the bet, there was no point as long as Tang Wulin and the others couldn't win. He would be guaranteed a suit of 4-word battle armor. Arahang seemed to be very wily in his negotiation, but none of that would count for anything in the wake of their inevitable loss. With that in mind, he immediately calmed down and said, "All right, I agree with the terms you raised on behalf of the Battle God Hall." Arahang took a glance at him. "You agree? Well, I suddenly don't want to make the bet now. What if you cheat during the match? That's enough from you." Mengshan couldn't hold back any longer. She was a member of the Battle God Hall, and she couldn't just watch as Arahang insulted this sacred organization in her heart. Arahang rubbed his own head in an awkward manner and said, "All right, don't get mad, honey. I'll do as you say even if it places us at a disadvantage. We'll make the bet based on the agreed terms. They won't suddenly go back on their word if they lose, right?" Mengshan glowered at him in response. "Shut up and watch the match." Aori was astonished by what he was seeing. Arahang had almost driven him insane with rage, yet he was acting like a harmless lamb in front of Mengshan. Thus, with the bet established, everyone turned their attention to the big screen to watch the match unfold. Only then did Aori's mood improve slightly. He was fully confident that Tang Wulin and the others didn't have any chance of victory. Through the big screen, they could see that Shrek Academy had split up, with Ling Zichen taking the middle path, while 2 people went down each of the side paths. The battle gods became even more relaxed upon seeing this. In the end, Tang Wulin and the others just weren't familiar enough with the Battle God arena. Over on Battle God Hall camp, the monarchs of the Douluo Mozahong had taken the middle path, while Long Tianwu and Su Munjin had taken the left path, which corresponded with the right path for the Shrek Academy camp. The 8th Battle God, vigorous dragon Douluo Nangong Yi, had taken the right path, while Guan Yue had plunged straight into the forest. Guan Yue's martial soul was the sky-crossing divine spear, and many years ago, he had been ranked alongside Ming Yan as the divine spear duo. However, Ming Yan's cultivation rank quickly outstripped Guan Yue's on his way to becoming the most powerful being in the world, and the name of the divine spear duo was gradually forgotten. However, Guan Yue was a limit Douluo himself, so he certainly wasn't to be underestimated. As soon as he entered the forest, he began to wreak havoc with his sky-crossing divine spear, slaying one soul beast after another to enhance the powers of himself and the other 4 battle gods. This was the standard strategy of the battle gods in the Battle God arena. Their main control system Soulmaster was stationed at the middle path to coordinate the entire battlefield, while 2 people went down one of the side paths to disrupt their opponents, and the final path was guarded by a single battle god. The final battle god's duty was to slay as many soul beasts in the forest as they could, enhancing the entire group in preparation for an all-out assault. After that, they would force back their opponents and slay the soul beasts in their area as well, and once the power gap widened to a sufficiently significant degree, they would be able to crush their opponents with ease. The battle gods had worked together countless times in the past, so their teamwork was impeccable. Guan Yue was clearing through the forest extremely quickly, yet just as the spectating battle gods thought that the match was in the bag, Tang Wulin also rushed into the forest. An astonishing scene then ensued. All of the battle gods stared blankly as the enormous tyrant dragon appeared in all of its ferocious glory. A golden dragon then shot forth toward another direction in the forest. Chapter 1699. Only then did they recall that Tang Wulin had secured a resounding victory during the Soul Spirit battle in the Trial of 5 Gods, and this victory could be attributed, in large part, to these 2 soul spirits. Compared to that time, the 2 soul spirits had undergone another transformation, and in particular, the tyrant dragon was simply awe-inspiring to behold. From its outward appearance alone, it looked even more powerful than a 100,000-year-old soul beast. Soul spirits could act as allies for all soul masters, but upon attaining a suit of battle armor, one soul spirits would inevitably become next to useless in battle, which was why most soul masters chose to develop their soul spirits in a direction that would allow them to assist the soul master. Thus, it was extremely rare to see soul spirits directly participating in battles between soul masters. There were several important reasons for this, one of which was that the vast majority of soul spirits were simply far too weak to contend with battle armor masters. Another problem was that once a soul spirit perished in battle, they could only recover after being nurtured in the soul master's body for a long time, and this process also significantly affected the soul master. Soul spirits and soul masters were connected entities, so any harm that befell the soul spirits would reflect back on the soul master as well. Thus, beyond the 2-word battle armor master level, it was extremely rare to see soul masters releasing their soul spirits for battle. However, these 2 soul spirits of Tang Wulins were complete outliers. Just a single stomp from the tyrant dragon could crush all of the weak soul beasts in a huge area, while Goldsong was extremely fast and efficient, dispatching one soul beast after another with ease. Furthermore, its golden dragon King Aura was significantly weakening the opposing soul beasts, making them even easier to kill. In contrast, the tyrant dragon seemed to be more interested in demolishing the forest than focusing on killing soul beasts, and the soul beasts that it did kill seemed to only be byproducts of its demolition job. Soul beasts could be resurrected quite quickly, but it took a lot longer for the forests to recover. All of this required energy for support, and the destruction being caused by the tyrant dragon would require a huge amount of energy to repair. This was the property of the Battle God Hall, so the battle gods always refrained from destruction as much as possible during their training, but Tang Wulin and the others had no such qualms. Thus the spectating battle gods' expressions darkened slightly upon seeing this, but of course, they weren't worried that 2 soul spirits would turn the tables. All of a sudden, they were greeted by the sight of Sima Jinkai charging toward the river in the exact same direction that Long Tianwu and Su Munjin were advancing toward. The 2 sides were both about to reach the river, and excitement was welling up in the hearts of the spectating battle gods. In terms of individual combat prowess, Aori was naturally the most fearsome battle gods below the Hall Masters, but in terms of overall power, the soul fusion skill between Long Tianwu and Su Munjin was something that even the Hall Masters had been wary of. Chen Xinji had once praised their soul fusion skill to possess no less combat prowess than a limit Douluo, so all of the battle gods were very much looking forward to this clash. If they could take care of a powerful being from the Shrek Academy from the get-go, then the rest of the battle would be made a lot simpler. However, just as the 2 sides were about to clash, Sima Jinkai suddenly changed directions and also charged into the forest. Thus, the right path in the territory of the Shrek Academy was completely empty and unguarded. What were they doing? The battle gods were all quite confused. Right at this moment, Zhang Zanheng suddenly exclaimed, "Could it be that they're targeting the dark demonic dragon?" Indeed, Sima Jinkai was advancing directly toward the area where the dark demonic dragon was lying in slumber, and he was about to enter the dark area of the forest soon. So this is your plan? Aori was suddenly in a fantastic mood, and all of his frustration washed away as he glanced at Arahang out of the corner of his eyes with a smile on his face. Arahang replied with a cold expression, "So what if it is? What do you take a 100,000-year-old dark demonic dragon for? Perhaps you've never encountered a 100,000-year-old soul beast of this caliber." Aori said in a mocking voice. A hint of concern appeared in Arahang's eyes upon hearing this. "Is it supposed to be very powerful?" Aori replied, "It's comparable in power to a limit Douluo. So you tell me, it doesn't have a suit of battle armor, but tens of thousands of years ago, a soul beast of caliber would have reigned supreme on our continent. You're completely delusional if you think the dark demonic dragon can be brought down by a single person. It's true that it can bring you significant enhancements, but you have to kill it first." Long Tianwu and Su Munjin had determined that the Shrek Academy camp could be preparing a trap for them, but Aori wasn't of the same opinion. Through the big screen, he could clearly see that Sima Jinkai was the only one to have entered the the dark area of the forest. What kind of trap could a single person possibly prepare? Arahang's brows furrowed tightly as he said, so you're saying the dark demonic dragon is very powerful? Auri replied, of course. Even the 5 of them combined would take quite some time to kill it, and we could take advantage of this period of time to infiltrate your starting point. I don't know who devised your strategy, but your right path is already deserted, and once we capture this opportunity, your loss will be sealed. Okay. All of the concern in Arahang's eyes suddenly vanished, and he gave Auri a wide smile. Auri couldn't help but falter slightly upon seeing this. How could he still smile at a time like this? Right at this moment, Zhang Zanning exclaimed, Tang Wulin has also entered the forest. Auri hurriedly turned toward the big screen upon hearing this, and sure enough, Tang Wulin had rushed into the dark area of the forest like lightning. He was traveling extremely quickly, and Sima Jinkai seemed to be intentionally waiting for him, so it didn't take long before the two of them were reunited. Were they going to attack the dark demonic dragon together? Tang Wulin was definitely extremely formidable, but even so, it would surely take them a long time to defeat the dark demonic dragon. At this point, Long Tianwu and Su Munjun had already reached the opposite bank of the river, which was very close to the dark area of the forest. Under these circumstances, Tang Wulin and Sima Jinkai had no chance. Did they think that Long Tianwu and Su Munjun were idiots? If they were to engage the dark demonic dragon in battle, they would definitely be severely taxed by the end, thereby making them easy pickings for Long Tianwu and Su Munjun. Meanwhile, inside the battle god arena, Tang Wulin spread open his wings and flew through the forest at a low altitude. There was a spiritual connection between Sima Jinkai and himself, so they could clearly sense one another's locations, and they were rapidly drawing closer to each other. A faint smile appeared on Tang Wulin's face as he could clearly sense a continuous stream of energy flowing into his body from behind him, and his aura was being elevated as a result. This was clearly a result of the Tyrant Dragon and Goldsong's killing rampage. Through his prior observation, he had already discovered this opportunity. He had agreed to this 5-on-5 battle against the battle gods as he was confident that he and his friend would emerge victorious. This was the territory of the battle god hall, but there were some things about them that the battle gods weren't unaware of, such as the effect that his golden dragon king bloodline had on all dragon-type soul beasts and martial souls. If they had known about this beforehand, they most likely wouldn't have been so confident. Chapter 1700. A beam of bright light flashed through the air as Tang Wulin descended beside Sima Jinkai, and the two of them exchanged a quick glance before the latter said, "It's still in slumber dust up ahead. I'll wake it up right now." Sima Jinkai sprang up into the air as he spoke, flying to the top of a large tree before a series of soul rings rose up from beneath his feet. All 9 of his soul rings were black, but curiously enough, they were riddled with golden patterns, setting them apart from normal 10,000-year-old soul rings. This was a result of the nourishment he was receiving from Tang Wulin. Sima Jinkai was the law-enforcing saber of the dragon clan, while Tang Wulin possessed the bloodline of the dragon god. Even though the golden dragon king was only a part of the dragon god, it possessed the purest dragon god bloodline. Hence, just by being with Tang Wulin, Sima Jinkai was naturally nurtured by him, and as a result, his cultivation rank would continue to elevate. At the same time, the quality of the law-enforcing saber was gradually recovering. Furthermore, the golden dragon spear and the dragon-slaying saber were acting as whetstones for one another, making each other sharper and more powerful. Under the illumination of the faint golden patterns on his 9 black soul rings, Sima Jinkai stood in the heavens like a proud deity. He raised the dragon-slaying saber in his right hand before slashing it downward, and a faint black dragon projection appeared not far away from him before being instantly sliced in half. Not a single sound was made, but all of the spectating battle gods were struck by a strong sense of oppression upon seeing this, as if their minds had been heavily impacted somehow. It was also right at this moment that a furious dragon's roar rang out up ahead. At the center of the dark forest was a valley, and every single thing inside that valley, including the plants and stones, were all completely black. The dragon's roar had rung out from the deepest point within this world of darkness, and at the same time, a massive dragon's head reared up. However, in the next instant, it sensed the aura of the dragon-slaying saber. At this point, Sima Jinkai was already a titled Douluo, and he was far more powerful than he had once been. After all, how could he regularly spar with Arahang, who had already attained the invincible Vajra body, without being a formidable warrior himself? Even with his invincible Vajra body, Arahang didn't dare to allow himself to be struck by a full power strike from the dragon-slaying saber, and that was sufficient testament to the divine weapon's power. At this moment, the oppressive power that the dragon-slaying saber had over all dragons was put on full display, and the dark demonic dragon's roar of fury suddenly turned into a hesitant whimper. It could sense just how fearsome the approaching enemy was, but this was its territory, and the order that had been implanted into its mind was that it had to destroy all humans who ventured into its territory with no exceptions. Thus, the giant dragon began to slowly rise up from within its massive lair. The dark demonic dragon was completely inky black in color, and it was over 100 meters in length from head to tail. It spread its massive wings, and a plume of purplish black mist erupted out of its body. The mist was extremely corrosive and infectious, which was why the entire area of this forest had been tainted black. A fearsome aura erupted out of its body as it flapped its wings and quickly flew up from its lair. In response, Sima Jinkai raised his dragon-slaying saber high above his head, and his 9 soul rings began to glow with dazzling light. The dark demonic dragon had already spotted him at this point, and it immediately let loose a roar of fury. It could sense the animosity from Sima Jinkai and the massive threat posed to it by the dragon-slaying saber, but it couldn't back down now, as doing so would spell its doom. Regardless of what happened, it had no choice but to fight for its life. Furthermore, the dragon-slaying saber was extremely intimidating and destructive to dragons, but don't forget that it was once a part of the dragon god's horn, making it extremely revered among the dragon clan. Even though this 100,000-year-old dark demonic dragon was only a simulation, it could sense that if it could fuse with the saber in Sima Jinkai's hand, it would undergo a stunning transformation. Perhaps it would even be able to transcend beyond this plane. Thus, the dark demonic dragon was appraising Sima Jinkai with both fear and intense yearning in its eyes. Another thunderous dragon's roar rang out as the dark demonic dragon blasted a burst of dark dragon breath towards Sima Jinkai. However, Sima Jinkai merely smiled upon seeing this. He was confident that he would be able to defeat this dark demonic dragon alone, but even with the dragon-slaying saber, it would take him a long time to dispatch such a powerful foe. However, he wasn't alone. He was joined by a true ruler of the dragon clan. A figure appeared behind Sima Jinkai in a stealthy manner, just as Sima Jinkai parted the dark breath with his dragon-slaying saber. At the same time, he rose up higher into the air with rainbow light erupting out of his body. At the same time, Tang Wulin's entire body began to glow with radiant golden light, and even though he still only had a suit of 3-word battle armor without any pieces of 4-word battle armor, the air around him had completely congealed. He reached out with his right hand, and the giant saber formed by Sima Jinkai landed in his grasp. It was also in this instant that the golden dragon king aura he had been repressing and hiding this entire time erupted forth like a tsunami wave. The dark demonic dragon was just about to unleash a full power attack, but it felt as if its blood had frozen solid in its veins in the face of this aura, and it was left completely immobilized. Even beast god Ditian, who was close to the 1 million year level, was affected to a certain extent by Tang Wulin's bloodline, let alone this 100,000-year-old dark demonic dragon. In this battle god arena, its power was second to that of the gold-eyed black dragon king, and in the face of the dragon-slaying saber and the golden dragon king aura, it was barely able to keep itself aloft. Right at this moment, the space around the dark demonic dragon suddenly warped violently, completely locking it into place. A burst of dazzling 9-colored light flashed past, leaving a beautiful arc in the sky. The dark demonic dragon's eyes instantly glazed over as it hovered in midair in a completely still manner. At this point, Tang Wulin had already landed on the other side of the valley, and the dragon-slaying saber in his hand had reverted back into Sima Jinkai. The two of them didn't even take a single glance at the dark demonic dragon before they sped toward the right path. A golden line that was shimmering with 9-colored light appeared on the dark demonic dragon's forehead, then extended past its neck, chest, and all the way to its tail. Immediately thereafter, rays of 9-colored light erupted out of the golden line, and the dark demonic dragon's massive body abruptly exploded into a cloud of purplish black mist. The entire battle god arena trembled violently, and an omniscient voice in the sky declared, "The dark demonic dragon has been slain." The purplish black mist spread through the air in all directions, and elsewhere in the battle god arena, Guan Yue, who was in the process of rapidly killing soul beasts, faltered as an incredulous look appeared in his eyes. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.